Last night, nearly 2 years into Israel's genocide, they finally carried out the assassination of the Palestinian journalist Anas al-Sharif. And to many of us, this didn't come as a shock. I mean, I was absolutely heartbroken when I heard the news about the killing of Anas al-Sharif and the 4 other Al Jazeera journalists that he was killed alongside. But the truth is that Israel had been trying to do this for months. They had been smearing Anas and seeking to discredit his reporting, claiming that he was actually a Hamas militant. And I don't really want to give much weight to these claims, because just 10 days before the assassination was carried out, Irene Khan, a UN Special Rapporteur on the freedom of expression, called the allegations unsubstantiated and stated that she feared for Anas's life. But when you actually look at the Israeli propaganda about this, what their claim is that Anas used to be a member of Hamas, that he received some training many years ago. But this is a very dangerous game for Israel to play, because the vast majority of Israeli journalists were members of the IOF, and also they remain on reserve. They could be called up to go back to killing Palestinians or stealing their land at any time. So claiming that Anas al-Sharif deserved to die because of this is farcical. And it's also farcical when you consider that this man has been on camera for basically 700 days now, reporting on what's happening in the Gaza Strip, experiencing tragedies and trauma that the vast majority of us could not even bear. And Israel claims that he's actually alongside this, directing rocket attacks against them. I am sorry, but just as when they killed Hossam Shabbat, it is utterly farcical. And all of this propaganda was likely created, according to the Israeli journalist Yuval Abraham, through an Israeli unit established after October the 7th, whose sole goal is legitimizing the killing of Palestinians, particularly journalists. By finding tangential links to Hamas, Israel can find justifications. I mean, when you listen to what the BBC was saying earlier, they gave weight to Israel's narrative.
In terms of how journalists are operating at the moment in the whole Gaza Strip, obviously international organisations like the BBC cannot go in, as we were hearing there, and so Al Jazeera using local people there. Are they able to operate truly independently?
Even if they just cast a little doubt and didn't explicitly repeat Israel's claims that Anas was an evil, untrustworthy militant, they helped them. They spread it. And this is exactly what Israel wanted. And the reason that this propaganda is so successful is because so many in the West are quick to believe that Hamas are a barbaric evil that is different from anything else possible in society.
You also can't forget in all this that Israel is living with pure evil next door. The leadership of Hamas has said that on any opportunity it will attack Israel, it will kill the Jewish people. And so there has to be a solution that means getting rid of Hamas. The question is how severe that is for the quote-unquote regular Gazans, regular Palestinians that are living there.
They see Israel as a civilized democracy who, regardless of what they are doing, are never going to be as bad as Hamas. But let's be frank here. Are you really surprised that Anas al-Sharif had some sympathies with Hamas? This was a 28-year-old man. He was born in 1996. In 2008, Israel engaged in Operation Cast Lead, destroying vast swathes of the Gaza Strip and killing more than 1,400 Palestinians. In 2014, they assaulted the Gaza Strip again. In 2018, they murdered hundreds of innocent protesters engaged in non-violent resistance against Israel during the Great March of Return. Nurses were murdered during this event, and tens of thousands of people were wounded, which put major pressure on the Gaza healthcare system and pushed people away from the idea that peaceful resistance was in any way meaningful. Because if you were losing your leg or your life or being disabled for the rest of your days simply for engaging in non-violent resistance, what was the point of it? And then again in 2021, Israel bombarded the Gaza Strip. And finally in 2023, Israel began its plan to expel Palestinian people from the Gaza Strip so as to genocide 2 million people, to expel them from their Palestinianness and reduce the Palestinian problem that has blighted Israel ever since its creation. And so are you really surprised that Anas al-Sharif might have taken photos with Yahya Sinwar denouement with other significant members of Hamas? Because I'm not. And I don't think that that discredits anything that he has done. As I said, this is a person who has seen what Israel does. He is a victim of Zionism. Are you really surprised that he might have had some sympathies throughout his life for the people who stood up against Israel? Israel is a country perpetrating crimes against humanity. Whatever charges of war crimes you can level against Hamas, they are not the ones enacting an apartheid regime on millions of Palestinians. They are not the ones consistently ethnically cleansing Palestinians from the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and attempting a huge ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip. Another crime against humanity. And they are literally in the process of perpetrating the crime of all crimes, genocide. But of course, there are still so many here who view Hamas as barbaric, backward savages. And so this propaganda nourishes them. It fits well with them. And they think it is okay to kill people like Anas al-Sharif, where you can just smear them with some barely credible allegations and some photos of him with Hamas leaders, and therefore he's designated for death. But they'd never dare to say the same about Israelis. They'd never care that Israeli journalists embed themselves with the IOF, and they'd certainly never care that they took photos with Netanyahu or other genocidal maniacs in the Israeli Knesset, because they're not barbaric savages, they're civilized. But ultimately, this is a distraction technique. Anas al-Sharif was not actually killed for any of his links with any militant group. The reason that Anas al-Sharif was killed was that he was one of the final insights that we had into northern Gaza. For months now, he's been reporting on the starvation there, which is worse than anywhere else in the Gaza Strip. He is a recognizable face whose reporting is so easy to find, so easy to trust for so many people. And because of that, he was a threat to Israel. This is the truth. Israel does not actually care whether you are engaged in militant or non-violent resistance. Look at how they responded to the Great March of Return. They turned shooting Palestinians in their legs into a game where the knee was considered a bullseye. This is a barbaric country who views all Palestinians as a threat regardless of what they are doing. And so someone like Anas, who picks up a camera, who reports on the crimes that Israel is committing, is a major threat. And so he had to go. It is absolutely no surprise that this occurred as Israel attempts to implement its final solution for the Palestinian population of the Gaza Strip. They are going to go into Gaza City, where more than 1 million Palestinians are living, with the goal of ethnically cleansing them to their bizarre humanitarian cities so they can eventually expel the Palestinian people. The truth is they are not fighting against Hamas. They are not fighting for hostages. They want to exterminate the Palestinian people, and they are going to ramp up the crimes that they are committing against them so as to fulfill this goal. And someone reporting on that would have been a danger. I mean, Anas literally noted how an Israeli government official referred to Al Jazeera as one of the major problems in the Gaza Strip for Israel. All their talk of famine and all the reporting that they were doing threatened Israel. And this is why Anas himself was so important, because if you went through his Twitter, if you followed him like I did, what you would see is that when Israel is claiming aid is getting in, people in northern Gaza, the area that is perhaps worst hit by Israel's starvation policies, they were unable to access it. It was either too highly priced or it was not being distributed. Palestinians were not getting aid, and Anas was one of the people telling us that. And now he's gone. Like Hossam Shabbat, like so many others, they were exterminated because they dared to report what Israel was doing. And what Israel has done to facilitate its genocide in the Gaza Strip is to discredit all local Palestinian journalists as evil members of Hamas, while simultaneously banning the entry of the vast majority of worldwide journalists unless they go embedded with the IOF, and the IOF can curate nice little scenes of of propaganda for them. And I must remind you that it is actually Israel whose journalism scene is so barbaric. Not only do they prevent Palestinian reporters from reporting freely, they also don't allow even Israeli reporters to report freely. Any sensitive security information has to go through the Israeli military censor. They ensure that not everything is published, such as the locations of their military bases when they're being attacked by Iran. This is why we stopped seeing imagery of Iran strikes and why Israel had to work so hard against it. Because they do actually build military infrastructure in densely populated areas, and sometimes even in areas where there are Palestinian towns and communities, so they can claim, look, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, they're all so evil, they kill Arabs because they don't care about them, whilst we Israelis protect them. But this plan failed because so many people have seen through Israel's lies. They know what Israel is actually like. And so they're not buying their lies. They're not buying the idea that all Palestinians are evil, monstrous liars. And so Israel had to resort to killing Palestinian journalists and turning it dark as they invaded the Gaza Strip and carried out their final solution. Their plans are for extermination and genocide. They've been openly stating this. It's what Trump's plan ultimately is. It is a plan to expel Palestinians. But it's not surprising because there were plans like this floated in 2023, and I am truly heartbroken. Anas al-Sharif was a brave and wonderful journalist who bore such horrifying trauma since October the 7th and before that, and yet carried on with his job masterfully, showing us what was happening in Gaza, remaining strong through the barbarism of the genocidal Israeli assault. And by all accounts, he was a really loving and caring guy. There's a beautiful video of him asking his very young daughter, who survives him, about why she wants to stay in Gaza, why she doesn't want to go anywhere else.
بابا
نعم.
ترامب بقول بده يطلعنا من غزة. انت بدك تطلع من غزة؟
لا طبعا في غزة
بدك تضلك في غزة؟ ليش؟
عشان بحب الغزة.
انت بتحب غزة؟ يعني
اه
بدكش تطلعي؟ طيب بدي اسافرك على قطر،
ولا تطل.
على الأردن،
لا
على مصر،
لا
على تركيا،
لا
على أي دولة؟
أنا تطل في الطل هذه.
بدك تضلك هنا في غزة؟ يعني مش طالعة؟
بس طالعة من المرة.
مش طالعة نهائيا؟ بالمرة؟ طيب قولي لهم احنا مش طالعين،
إحنا بس طالعين
صامدين هان
صمتين هنا.
يا روحي.
He is also succeeded by his wife and his son, who he had been separated from because of Israel's genocide and the fact that Israel has been killing journalists and their families. And so Anas al-Sharif is an inspiration to all of us. Like so many other heroic figures throughout the history of Palestinian resistance, he stood up and spat in the face of the Israeli killing machine. He told us what the Palestinian people were going through and helped to shape our perceptions and teach us about how barbaric Israel's crimes truly were. And I think that everyone should hear Anas al-Sharif's final statement, the words that he left this world with, that he prepared because he knew that he was stalked by the Israeli killing machine. He knew that one day all of the propaganda that they spewed would be used to kill him. And for all of those barbaric people who have celebrated this killing, for shame, look at yourselves in the mirror. You are justifying the mass killing of journalists. You are supporting the extermination of Palestinians in darkness by a barbaric apartheid regime. This is my will and my final message. If these words reach you, know that Israel has succeeded in killing me and silencing my voice. First, peace be upon you, and Allah's mercy and blessings. Allah, I know I gave every effort and all my strength to be a support and a voice for my people, ever since I opened my eyes to life in the alleys and streets of the Jabalia refugee camp. My hope was that Allah would extend my life so I could return with my family and loved ones to our original town of occupied Ascalon. But Allah's will came first, and His decree is final. I have lived through pain in all its details, tasted suffering and loss many times. Yet I never once hesitated to convey the truth as it is, without distortion or falsification, so that Allah may bear witness against those who stayed silent, those who accepted our killing, those who choked our breath, and whose hearts were unmoved by the scattered remains of our children and women, doing nothing to stop the massacre that our people have faced for more than a year and a half. I entrust you with Palestine, the jewel in the crown of the Muslim world, the heartbeat of every free person in this world. I entrust you with its people, with its wronged and innocent children, who never had the time to dream or live in safety and peace. Their pure bodies were crushed under thousands of tons of Israeli bombs and missiles, torn apart and scattered across the walls. I urge you not to let chains silence you, nor borders restrain you. Be bridges toward the liberation of the land and its people, until the sun of dignity and freedom rises over our stolen homeland. I entrust you to take care of my family. I entrust you with my beloved daughter Sham, the light of my eyes, whom I never got the chance to watch grow up as I had dreamed. I entrust you with my dear son Salah, whom I had wished to support and accompany through life until he grew strong enough to carry my burden and continue the mission. I entrust you with my beloved mother, whose blessed prayers brought me to where I am, whose supplications were my fortress, and whose light guided my path. I pray that Allah grants her strength and rewards her on my behalf with the best of rewards. I also entrust you with my lifelong companion, my beloved wife, Salah Bayan, from whom the war separated me for many long days and months. Yet she remained faithful to our bond, steadfast as the trunk of an olive tree that does not bend, patient, trusting in Allah, and carrying the responsibility in my absence, all her strength and faith. I urge you to stand by them, to be their support with Allah Almighty. If I die steadfast upon my principles. I testify before Allah that I am content with His decree, certain of meeting Him and assured that what is with Allah is better and everlasting. O Allah, accept me among the martyrs. Forgive my past and future sins, and make my blood a light that illuminates the path of freedom for my people and my family. Forgive me if I have fallen short, and pray for me with mercy, for I kept my promise and never changed or betrayed it. Do not forget Gaza, and do not forget me in your sincere prayers for forgiveness and acceptance. Anas Jamal al-Sharif, the 6th of April 2024. And I will end this video with a quote from Nadia Bou Ali. The resistance of people in Gaza today poses a serious question to all these quandaries. The children who have been born and raised in an open-air prison for the past 2 decades, hugging the cadavers of their siblings or parents, are a lesson in what it means to be human. They speak for the very concept of living, looking into the very eye of the death drive, here in the genocidal form of complete annihilation carried out by the Zionist state, yet holding on to words, consoling the dead lest they give up on the cause of living. There is an element in the scenes we see coming out of Gaza that we have not seen before in recent history, at least not in the same form. In fact, I would insist that it is not singular. The only singularity here is the sinister face of the ugly enjoyment of genocide. Rather, the people of Gaza beckon forth a humanism that has to be constructed, not the feeble, empty humanism of human rights discourse, which has in turn allowed for the singularity of suffering to put on its Zionist garb, but a concrete universality that looks back at the grin of ugly enjoyment and tells it, I have a reason to live that you do not know. I don't have a justification. I have no recourse in your normative reckonings with rules and laws. I have no recourse for your theories of justification, yet I am not your irrational form of enjoyment that partakes in the destruction of living. I am a negative value, a pathology that faces you with the very question of what it means to live, to be alive.